Welcome to this introduction to PyMOL. This video will go through and demonstrate the user interface and the basic functions of the program. Here's a PyMOL session with two proteins. The console is located at the top, with a logbook showing previous commands and a line for manually writing commands. To the right is an overview of objects and selections in the session. In the middle of the screen is a 3D representation of objects in the session. Navigating the 3D structure is easiest using the 3-button mouse. By holding down the left mouse button and moving the mouse, the objects are rotated around a point in space. To change this point in space, the cursor can be placed atop a point on an object, followed by a click on the middle mouse button. Now the objects rotate around this point. To move your view from side to side or up and down, keep the middle mouse button pressed and move the mouse. Finally, zooming is done by holding down the right mouse button and moving the mouse up and down. Now that we are through the basic controls, let's take a look at some of the basic functions of PyMOL. When PyMOL is opened, you are met by a black screen surrounded by the aforementioned user interface. Notice that no objects are loaded, and only the All button is shown on the menu on the right. The easiest way to add an object to your session is by using the fetch command, which contacts the RCSB protein databank and gets an object in their database corresponding to a 4-letter code that identifies the structure. In this instance, the structure of a domain of a potassium channel obtained by NMR is fetched with the code 2L0W. Now the domain is shown as a 3D structure and the name of the object 2L0W is shown to the right. Beside each object in the menu to the right are 5 buttons: A, S, H, L, and C, or Action, Show, Hide, Label, and Color, if you will. Action provides functions that either sets the point of view in the 3D representation or manipulates objects in the session. Most of these functions will be taught through the course. Show allows users to show the object in question in a variety of ways. By default, protein structures are shown as cartoons that show beta strings as arrows, alpha helices as helices, and loops as simple strings. One of the very useful representations is the one called licorice. This representation shows all atoms in the structure. By default, carbon is colored green, nitrogen blue, oxygen red, and hydrogen white. Notice that the Show button did not remove the cartoon representation, but simply applied the licorice representation on top. To remove the cartoon representation, use the button Hide. Another important representation is the one called Surface. This representation shows the surface structure of the object. To return to the cartoon representation, first click on Hide and Everything, and then on Show and Cartoon. Label, as indicated by the name, labels things in the object. Exemplificatia, one can use residues to label all side chains in an object. This is useful to quickly indicate and find specific residues. To remove these, simply press Clear in the Label menu. color allows the user to color objects. If you find your favorite color, the object can be colored so. It is also possible to color objects by element, secondary structure, or even in the rainbow spectrum from N to C terminal. This can be very useful for creating a quick overview of the structure of a protein. Notice that the color of the cartoon representation is determined by the carbon alpha atom in each side chain. It's not always favorable to change an entire object. Selections are used to change part of objects. There are many ways to define selections. The easiest method is just to left-click on the desired selection. This will by default select the residue that was clicked. This can be changed in the menu on the mouse on the selection mode. Here, clicks can be set to select atoms or even whole protein chains. Another way to select is to hold down Shift and draw a rectangle around the desired selection by clicking and dragging the mouse across the screen. The last easy way to select side chains is to click the S button at the bottom left of the screen. This will show the sequence of shown objects just under the console. Here, one can simply click the desired residues. When a selection is created, it is shown as a tentative selection in the list of objects called celle. To save a selection for later use, use the Action menu. For celle, choose Rename Selection and simply write a name for the selection. Any new selection will once again be called celle. Saved selections are written with parentheses around them in the menu to the right. You can use selections to change parts of objects. Objects exist in the 3D representation, while selections merely mark these objects or parts thereof. You can use the buttons next to the selection in the exact same way as for objects. To illustrate, we can show the selection as licorice and in the color of red.